Hi there, Roma Waterman here. Thanks for checking out this video, which is a really short training. It goes for about 15 minutes on my top 10 tips on how to get started on writing your book. I thought that this would be a great introduction to you if you've been wanting to write your book and you're not sure where to start, because it is quite a big process, isn't it? And sometimes the reason why we don't share our story is just simply because we don't have the tools that we need. We don't think we have what it takes, or maybe you don't have the confidence. So I wanted to just share in this training really simple tips that I hope will inspire you and get you started on writing your book. Now, full disclosure, this is actually a video that's part of a comprehensive online course I've got where I outline absolutely everything you need to write your book, from planning to brainstorming, how to do chapter outlines, to things like marketing your book, how to get your own book onto the Amazon store using Ingram Spark, how to budget, everything. There's just heaps of stuff in there with PDFs and videos. But if you simply just need some tips, some inspiration, this video will give you that. If we haven't met yet, I'm Roma Waterman. I am obviously an author. I've written over 7 books, and I'm a singer-songwriter. I've been in worship ministry for over 30 years, and I run an online training school called Heart Song Creative Academy that trains people like you, thousands of students around the world, on all things creative. And this is one of my favorite courses, my favorite training. We've had lots of students actually do this course and get their own #1 book. So I'd love to give you this training as a gift. Get to know me, get to know my training. This will really get you motivated. Enjoy it. Get a pen and some paper ready, and don't hesitate to reach out once you've watched the video if you have any questions. I hope it blesses you, and I look forward to hearing about the book that you write that shares your God-given story with the world. God bless. Before we get into all the phases of writing, what I thought would be helpful for you is giving you some top writing tips that will give you a good overview and a good healthy approach to writing well. So this is my top 12 writing tips that I really believe will help you and make you a great writer, and it'll really help you to enjoy the process. So here we go. Number 1, think about what person you are writing in. Are you writing in first person? Are you writing in third person? What do I mean by that? Well, writing in third person, for example, is like writing from someone else's point of view. It might be an outsider looking in. You'd use pronouns like he, she, it, or they. First person, in comparison to that, is when you would use pronouns such as I and me. You're really writing from your own personal perspective. And then obviously you've got second person, which uses pronouns such as you and yours. So what person are you writing in? And then keep it consistent. What a lot of new writers tend to do is they mix it up. So they might start writing in first person, and then all of a sudden they're writing in third person, and not realizing they're doing it, but it's actually confusing for the reader. So thinking about what person you're writing in and then keeping that consistent. Tip number 2, keep your chapters a similar length. Now, we're not talking about writing novels here. We're talking about writing a legacy type book, a book that's sharing your story, or a book where you're sharing some of your knowledge. And to have a book like that have good healthy bones, keeping your chapters a similar length is really important. So for example, you don't want one chapter to be 30 pages or 15 pages long and then the next chapter to be 5 pages long. It's confusing. I don't like it when I read a book like that. I like the chapters to kind of be even. I just think it creates a good healthy book with good bones. Number 3, break down your workload so you don't feel overwhelmed. It's really easy to go, my goodness, I'm writing a whole book here. I don't know where to start. And then you don't start at all. Maybe that's why you bought this course, because that's what you've done. So breaking down your workload so you don't feel overwhelmed. So for example, you might say, I'm just going to write this one chapter. I'm not going to think about the whole book right now. I'm just going to aim to write one chapter, or 300 words a day, whatever it is. Breaking down your workload into bite-sized pieces will stop you from feeling overwhelmed, and it'll keep you feeling inspired. Number 4, write a table of contents. Use post-it notes if you have to. So I would sit down. This is what I've done before. I've actually used post-it notes and gone, okay, what are the chapters that I want to talk about? And instead of trying to write down a chapter outline in sequential order, so number 1, number 2, number 3, I just brainstorm and write down everything that I want to talk about. I do this when I create courses as well. In fact, I did it for creating this course. I just wrote down everything that I want to cover. And then what I do, the benefit of using post-it notes is I'll write those chapter outlines on the post-it notes, and then I'll just move them around to see where they fit best, or you can just copy and paste on a computer. I just find doing it like that where I don't have to think about the exact order. I just have to brainstorm about what I want to share, and then putting it in the order afterwards is really good. But then having that table of contents keeps me on track. So I'm not just writing one chapter and hoping that it will help me get to the next chapter. I'm actually going, okay, this is what I want to cover. I've got the big picture. Now, where does it all fit? And then, with some of my topics, because I'm not, I don't need it to be like a novel that's following something that's happening. I actually sometimes write my chapters in different orders. So I don't always write chapter 2 straight after chapter 1. I might go to chapter 7 because it's something I'm interested in, or I've learned something new and I want to get it down on paper as quick as I can. So having that table of contents will just really solidify some of your ideas and give you the big picture of what your book is going to look like. Let's go to tip number 5. Don't edit when you're in the writing phase. Now, writing and editing are two different talents. Writing, you are putting your thoughts on a page. You're thinking about how you're coming across. You're sharing ideas. If you're trying to edit at the same time, so what do I mean by edit? Spell checking, making sure your sentences are formulated well. Where does a paragraph go? Do I need to edit a paragraph? Do I need to cut a section out? If you're thinking of all of that at the same time as you're writing, it's so laborious, it becomes boring, it's frustrating because you're trying to actually do two jobs at once. They are two different jobs. What I do when I'm in my writing phase is I just write. I just do as much as I can. Then my first little thing I'll do when I finish my chapter is I'll obviously do a spell check straight after the writing phase. I'll read through it again. I might change a few things here and there, but I don't think of editing at that moment. I only think of editing once the book is complete and I've got a whole picture. I've got everything there. And then I use an editor to help me with that, a second pair of eyes. So don't try to edit when you're in the writing phase or you will get stuck. I'm telling you that from experience. Number 6, be disciplined to write every day or every week, not just when you feel like it. If I only ever sat down and wrote when I felt like it, I would never have a book out because it's rare that I felt the creative juices flowing until I got into the work. So I would encourage you, no matter how you're feeling, just to get into it and just make a commitment. Even if it's, I'm going to write 300 words a day for 3 weeks or 2 weeks or even 1 week, whatever you can do, whatever you can fit into your life right now, be disciplined to write every day. I've got a personal example of this. In the middle of writing my last book, my dad passed away very unexpectedly and it was a really hard time, and obviously, we had to sell my dad's business. We had to sell my mum and dad's house. We had to move my mum all within the period of a year, and I had little kids at the same time. And I was in the middle of writing this book. Obviously, I had to put it on hold for a little while. But when I came back to it, I actually was so distracted. I had so many other things on and I did not feel creative at all. I really didn't feel like writing. And I would say, for 3 months, I had to sit down and force myself to get into writing, but I made myself do it. And you know what would happen? After 10, 15, 20 minutes, I was so engrossed in what I was doing, the juices started to flow, the creativity started to flow, but I didn't wait for that to happen. So sometimes entering creativity comes through the door of discipline. So being disciplined every day to write is really going to help you get this book done and not just be an idea in your head. Tip number 7, give yourself a deadline to work towards. That will really help you to understand when you want the book done. A lot of people want to write a book. Heaps of people want to do it. There's lots of people that are watching this course that may never finish it. That's why I really want to spur you on and say if you give yourself a deadline, you'll actually find that you can timeline things when you have a deadline. So when do you want the next chapter finished? Do you want it done in 2 weeks? Put that in your diary. When do you want the book finished? Do you want it done by December the 30th? Okay, then what does it look like when you backtrack from that date? How much do you need to do on a weekly, on a monthly, on a daily basis to get that book finished? Give yourself a deadline and it will help you get the end goal, which is completing your book. Tip number 8, keep inspired and keep a list of inspirational ideas. This will keep you motivated. I chose this picture because this idea of going to an art gallery or going to a museum, that's something that keeps me inspired. And interestingly, you know what we can tend to do when something creative is creative but not necessarily related to your work of the book that you're writing, you can sometimes switch it off and go, well, I don't have time to do that. But actually, creativity breeds creativity. So for me, it's not like this for everyone, but for me, going to a museum or an art gallery just totally inspires me. Looking at beautiful art totally inspires me. And so doing those things sometimes, getting away from my office or away from my computer, actually helps me stay motivated for my own writing, and it helps me, it actually gives me more ideas, more things to talk about, more things to express, new ideas. So keeping inspired and then keeping a list of inspirational ideas. What I tend to do, the way that I keep lists in several ways. One is I have Evernote on my iPhone, which is an app you can download, and I can put web links in there, pictures, quotes that I read, anything that really gets me motivated and inspired. I'll keep it in a little file in Evernote. Or what else I might do is I might be scrolling through Facebook and I'll see an article that looks really interesting, and I'll actually go into the article and I'll save it so that I can read it again or read it at a later time. So keeping a list of inspirational ideas will really keep you motivated, and it will just make for better writing. Tip number 9, journal. This is a great exercise to improve your writing and develop ideas. Now, your journaling may not have anything to do with the book that you're writing, but you would be surprised at how it develops your ideas and develops your writing. I have a journal, and I journal different ways. So I'm not the kind of person that can just write down what I've done every day. That to me is so boring. I'm like, what's the point of that? I know what I did. I don't need to put that in a book. But I have lots of songwriting lyric ideas. That's one way I journal, is I'll just write down lyric ideas. Another thing that I'll do is I'll write poetry sometimes. I'm not a poet, but I'll just write little poetry lines out. Another way that I'll journal is I keep a dream journal. So I dream a lot. I'll write down my dreams in my journal with a date, and I love reading back on that because oftentimes my dreams actually have a lot of meaning. Sometimes I will do journaling prayers. So being a spiritual person, I will just write out prayers, and I'll do them in a poetic way. Or one time I actually sat in a plane, I still remember doing this, going, if God was going to write me a letter, what would it sound like? And I wrote myself a letter from God, and I've still got it because it really helped me with ideas and inspiration. But it's also a great way to improve your writing because they're short bursts of inspiration, and so you can actually try out different ideas without worrying too much about how it's coming across, because it's just for your journal. So journaling is a great way to develop ideas. Number 10, take regular breaks. This will keep you motivated and fresh. I love this picture. Sorry, boys, it's very girly, but a cup of tea to me is taking a break, and keeping regular breaks is important. Don't go and sit at your computer for 3 hours and not get up if you're not inspired. If you're totally into it, that's great, but taking regular breaks will keep you fresh. There's actually a method a lot of writers use called the egg timer method, whereas they just put an alarm on their phone every 15 minutes. The alarm goes off, and in the olden days, I guess that was an egg timer, but every time that goes off, you get up and you run around your house, or you go and have a cup of tea, or you get a drink of water, just to jolt you out of where you're at, and then you come back, you sit down again, and you keep writing. So keeping regular breaks is a great way to stay motivated. Tip number 11, this is really obvious, but I'm going to say it to you. Get rid of all your distractions, your phone, your TV, your kids. Try your best. Well, don't get rid of your kids, but you know what I mean. Try your best to keep your full attention to your work. So, for me, because I do a lot of work on social media, my phone and my computer are connected. If someone sends a message, it comes up on my computer. If someone tries to call me, my computer starts ringing. My Facebook pops up, WhatsApp comes up, there's Snapchat, there's texts, there's Instagram. It is so distracting. So what I tend to do is turn my Wi-Fi off, and I put my phone facing down so I don't see it, and I go, just for 40 minutes, I am just going to write, and then I will check if I need to check and see if anything's important. The world hasn't blown up every time I've checked. Nothing bad's happened. So getting rid of those distractions, because that constant distraction it will just stop and start your brain from thinking, and it can be very frustrating. Here's my final tip. Don't listen to the negative voices in your head, because they are going to be there, and you've probably heard them even today saying, why are you writing a book? You can't do this. You've never written a book before, or the last book you wrote didn't do anything. Don't listen to those negative voices. The first time I sat down to write a book, that week, I remember telling someone, a mentor, guess what, I'm thinking of writing a book. And they looked at me like, well, who do you think you are? And I actually told two people. The first person I told laughed at me. The second person actually said, what are you doing writing books? You're a singer and a songwriter. Just stick to that. That's an absolute waste of time. But I just had this burning to share my knowledge. I really was excited about it. And I remember sitting down at the computer with my hands on the keyboard, and all I could hear were those voices. I could hear that person laughing. I could hear that person saying, what do you think you're doing? And my thoughts went crazy. I'm like, who do I think I am? I can't do this. I don't think I can even write. What am I doing? And I had to really just push those voices out of my head and talk to myself. I had to say, I can do this. At least I can give it a go. If it doesn't work, at least I tried. I'm going to just finish it and see what happens. And I'm happy to say that book ended up being a bestseller, and it was the book that started my journey. So don't listen to the negative voices in your head. Be encouraged that everybody has them, but you don't have to listen to every negative voice that tries to talk you out of writing your amazing book. So let's just go through that summary again very quickly so you've got them all in your head. Tip number 1, thinking about what person you're writing in, first, third, second, etc., and keep it consistent. Tip 2, keep chapters a similar length. Tip 3, break down your workload so you don't feel overwhelmed. For example, writing one chapter at a time. Number 4, writing a table of contents. Use post-it notes if you have to, or however it works best for you. Number 5, don't edit when you're in the writing phase. Separate the two. Tip 6, be disciplined to write every day or every week, not just when you feel like it. Tip number 7, give yourself a deadline to work towards. Tip number 8, keep inspired and keep a list of inspirational ideas. This will keep you motivated. Tip 9, journaling, a great exercise to improve your writing and develop ideas. Tip number 10, taking regular breaks to keep yourself motivated and fresh. Tip number 11, get rid of distractions. And finally, tip number 12, don't listen to those negative voices in your head. I hope that's been helpful. Now let's get into the deep work of each phase to get your book out into the world.